Christopher Marlowe and his plays. Christopher Marlowe, whose life ended when he was 29, is one of the most significant of its Elizabethan dramatists. He was a pioneer and innovator in addition to being a poet of genius. When he began to write for the stage, plays were still relatively crude and naive productions, frequently written in old-fashioned jog-trot verse. Where was I? This is difficult. Marlowe introduced a powerful and flexible blank verse and centered interest in the portrayal of some strong characters in each of his tragedies. The young Shakespeare was to observe Marlowe's practice and profit by imitation. Marlowe's plays represent a great step forward in literary skill and dramatic power. The son of a Canterbury shoemaker, who was a substantial citizen of the community, Marlowe was born on February 6th, 1564, a little over 10 weeks before Shakespeare's birth. He attended the King's School, Canterbury, and in 1581 matriculated at Corpus Christi College, Cambridge. On a scholarship established by Archbishop Parker. He received his BA degree in 1584 and the Master, MA, Master, in 1587. As the holder of one of the Parker scholarships, Marlowe expected to take holy orders and to enter the clergy. At some point in his theological studies, however, he was diverted from orthodoxy and chose the stage instead of the pulpit for expression of his ideas. In June of the year that he received his MA, the Privy Council wrote a letter to authorities at Cambridge stating that it had been reported that Christopher Marlowe planned to go beyond seas to Reims, then a center for disaffected English Catholics. But the Privy Council hoped that this rumor could be allayed by all possible means, because it was not Her Majesty's pleasure that anyone employed as had been in matters touching the benefit of his country should be defamed by those who are ignorant in the affairs he went about. It is quite remarkable that the Queen's Privy Council should thus concern itself with a 23-year-old divinity student at Cambridge unless he had performed some unusual service. What this service was, we do not know. But the tone of the letter suggests that for a brief period he may have been sent overseas on some confidential mission. Like other events in Marlowe's life, this episode remains unexplained. In the light of later events, it has been suggested that he was a spy in the service of Sir Francis Walsingham, Principal Secretary and head of Queen Elizabeth's Secret Service, but direct evidence is lacking. Shortly after leaving the university, Marlowe took up residence in London. What he did for a livelihood is unknown to us, but that he turned his hand to dramatic writing is a certainty. The plays that have survived from his pen were not sufficient to support him, and he must have had some other source of income. He was part of a brilliant circle of young men, including Sir Walter Raleigh, Thomas Harriot, I'll just say Harriot because it's British, Harriot, the mathematician and scientist, Thomas Nash, the pamphleteer, and other writers. For a time he had a roommate, Thomas Kidd, a playwright and author of The Spanish Tragedy, a sensational drama. I gotta read that sometime. Kidd was later to testify, among other iniquities, that Marlowe had a violent temper and was intemperate and cruel of a cruel heart. A murder in which Marlowe was involved on September 18th, 1589, indicates that Kidd may have had some grounds for his characterization of his roommate. On that day, Marlowe met by chance in Hog Lane. Hog Lane. By chance in Hog Lane. Why would they even say by chance in Hog Lane? Where he himself was living. A certain William Bradley, son of Holborn innkeeper. A few weeks earlier, Bradley had sworn out a warrant against Thomas Watson, poet and friend of Marlowe's, and two others, charging that he was in danger of his life from them. What Marlowe's quarrel was, the evidence does not state, but as they were fighting with swords, Watson appeared and Bradley lunged at him. I'm just gonna stop there. So I'm fasting right now. That's my excuse for my reading. So Marlowe's dad is a shoemaker, allegedly, and he's so brilliant that the Queen wants him to go infiltrate the Catholics. So the fact that Now, I know this is a stretch, but where I'm going with this. So, like, I'm a Baconian, and the thing about the Baconian thing is, if I believe that Bacon was the son of Elizabeth, okay, um, which I do, I think is if if that is true, it puts everything into a different light. Like, for one thing, Bacon was born in 1561. So he would have had time to do his regular college, and then he could have gone to another college. Yes, he could have entered a Catholic school on behalf of um, the Queen. So if the Queen's his mom, Bacon clearly has all these. He's he's a poet. Everyone knows he's a poet by the time he's about 12 or 13, probably. Um, and he's a genius. And perhaps he's even good at wearing costumes. So it's always alleged that Stratfordians always alleged that Shakespeare was, he was just an actor all this time. So like an actor is kind of like a spy too. So it is possible. I mean, it would be weird if everyone was Francis Bacon, but so and this hinges on the fact that it's hard to keep all this sorted, like which part of its information is true or what is like what's the most important thing. So he would have had a 3 year jump um, on the actual Marlowe. So I'm just saying that Bacon could have been in disguise, uh, pretending to be Catholic. He was did not. I mean, Marlowe was like an atheist, or like a lot of things he did were so anti-Christian that it's hard to believe that he ever was Christian. So it's like, and the trouble he got into later with his atheist, with everything about him was so, I'd say, diabolical that it's hard to think that he's like, that the Queen found this guy, Christopher Marlowe. Okay, he's just so good at costume. I mean, really, you'd think maybe his best skill, they say like in this thing I just read, like we don't know why, like what he did, but I would say evidently he's a master of disguise and he can play different characters. Um, and so I do think it's possible that that Bacon uh, was like, "Hey, mom, I can do this. I could infiltrate and do all this stuff." At the same time, he's going to be making his own plays, and he's going to have a huge chip on his shoulder. That's the thing about if Bacon is the son of Elizabeth is that at some point Bacon finds out, and it's like imagine the ego trip. This is the thing that uh, really makes it. I think this is the thing. This is the concept, the dramatic concept that that makes it interesting. Um, I'm about 30 hours into fasting, and I'm not very good at this, so I feel very confused. But I got a migraine. I've had a migraine Sunday night, and now today, and this sucks. But I'm just going with this, and when I read something like Tamberlane, um, just taking over the entire world, and there's various lines in it about coming from a guy that was secretly the heir to the throne. Tamberlane hits different. It hits a certain way, um, and you know what? I'm just going to stop for there. This is a process. This is going to be. I have many things. The whole reason I'm doing this is because it's the 400-year death anniversary of Francis Bacon on, I believe, the 9th. Now, do I think it's slightly possible that Bacon faked his death and he didn't actually die on the day? It's. I don't see why it would be that. I think it is possible. So there would be a couple of fake deaths here, like Marlowe's death would be fake, and then Bacon's death could be fake. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to be like wild speculate here on things that are unlikely, totally unlikely. But I'm just going to call it Bacon's 400-year death anniversary, I believe, on April 9th. So I decided I didn't even know if I was going to get in. I wasn't sure that I wanted to read a bunch of Shakespeare and Marlowe and Bacon and stuff. but I've started now, and I did Tamburlaine 1 and 2 like the last 3 days, and then I started on the Jew of Malta today, which I've read all of. I've read all of Marlowe's. Some only once. I've read Faustus maybe 5 times, but I'm going to read that, and then Dido, Queen of Carthage, and then I'm going to get into Antony and Cleopatra. I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do Henry V. I'm going to do Troilus and Cressida. And I can't remember. I have a short list of maybe 5 or so that I'm going to do just during this next few weeks. And there's some other things that I'm going to be showing, but I just wanted to get this ball started, this ball rolling. Yeah, that's all I got for right now.